the trees, the mountains, the land. Eventually, when enough time has passed, the earth will have forgotten my name. So, while I'm here, why not build some cool keyboards? What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel. A little while ago, Epomaker slid in my DMs and asked me if I'd be interested in checking out their new-ish budget keyboard, the EP75. And they had some game because I said yes, and here we are. Now, before we get into it, I want to say that while Epomaker did send me this keyboard for review, no money was exchanged and they have no input on this video. Everything I say about the EP75 will be 100% my own thoughts. Okay, the EP75 comes in some simple packaging with an expected amount of branding and info on the paper sleeve. Inside the box remains just as simple. You also get a user manual, a straight rubber USB cable, a switch and keycap puller combo, and a plastic cover that could be used as a dust cover if you wanted to. The keyboard also comes in some PE foam that you could use for the PE foam mod if you wanted to. The keyboard itself is a fully plastic Exploded 75 pre-built kit. It only comes in this one colorway with the pompous PBT keycaps and ESA profile that we'll look at a bit closer later. It's 5-pin hot swap with a steel plate. It can connect via USB, Bluetooth, or the 2.4 GHz dongle with its whopping 10,000 mAh battery. You can find the wireless switch on the booty along with dual stage flip up feet if you need a more aggressive typing angle. And one of the big features of this board is this big time gamer RGB light show that this thing puts on with both per key RGB as well as the RGB diffuser that wraps all the way around the board. It's not perfectly diffused, but the hotspots aren't so offensive that I need to turn it off. It's definitely done better than some other boards. And it definitely adds some flair to what would be otherwise a pretty basic plastic board. Really quick before I start tearing it apart, let's take a quick listen to how it sounds completely stock. Stabs could use a little bit of tuning. As I find with a lot of plastic boards, it sounds a bit hollow. But this could also be caused by the keycaps. The sub button isn't hollow though. Go ahead, hit it for that deep thought. The ESA profile is Epomaker's take on the common SA profile. They're double shot PBT with fairly thick walls and no texture to them at all. Here they are compared to a nice PBT keycap. It's hard to say for certain, but the walls of the ESA caps are, if not as thick, just a tiny bit thinner than the nice PBT. Every form of SA I've ever tried though suffers from this same problem. The height just gives them too much hollow space inside of the keycap. Now, sound is subjective, and I understand if you like the sound keycaps similar to this produce, but personally, I don't. The tall caps combined with the resonance of a plastic board just leaves a lot to be desired for me. Another good place to take a look while talking about sound is the switches. The EP75 can be bought with your choice of Epomaker's Flamingo linear switch, Epomaker's Budgregard tactile switch, or the trusty Gateron Pro Yellow. The unit they sent me has the Flamingo switches. Here's a quick spec rundown. It's a factory lubed 5-pin linear switch with a 60-gram bottom out, PC housing, dual stage spring, and a long pole palm stem. Which is really good to see because the EP75 has north-facing switch sockets. So, even if you want to swap out the keycaps on this to a cherry profile, you won't have any interference with the Flamingo switches. I'll cover these more in a bit though. For now, let's get this thing open. Opening this was a little confusing for my lizard brain. There are no visible screws on the back, so I checked under the feet. Nothing. Then I checked under the flip-up feet. Nothing. Then I checked under some keycaps. I found something weird, but also nothing. So it must be clips. Okay, so it's definitely clips. Nailed it. Get all of that apart while quietly praying to Teha that you don't break any of the clips off, and we find the case dampening. Not exactly sure what type of foam it is, but it is dense. It's also the same foam used between the plate and the PCB. Under that, you'll find the two chonker batteries hidden away. There is no daughter board. The USB connector is soldered onto the PCB, but there's no flex in this board either, so I'm not too worried about that. There isn't a ton of space down here for me to stuff full of dampening, but I had some ideas. First off, tape mod. It helps regulate the sounds bouncing around in the bottom case. There are much smarter people that have given very good explanations of this, so I'll save you from my smooth brain take on that. Tape mod good, I use 2 layers. Second, I use polyfill around the entire perimeter of the bottom case to try and dampen it just a bit more. Before I close it up, let's look at the mounting system. It's not gasket, but despite all of the posts along the bottom, it's also not tray mount. Nothing screws in. It's really strange. The plate foam either has small cuts where the posts go through, making some like teeth catch on them, while it just doesn't have holes cut at all for some other posts. I do not know what's going on here, but it holds it in place, I guess. You just probably shouldn't remove the plate foam. So I'm not even going to take the plate and PCB apart. I will regret this later. Close it back up, mash some keys, and I think it already sounds a lot better. Here's a taste. It still sounds plastic, but much cleaner. Now let's talk switches. I am really impressed with the Flamingo switches. They feel great. The 2-stage spring makes them very snappy and responsive. The factory lube job is very consistent and smooth, and I hear very little spring ping, if any at all. Here they are compared to a lubed and filmed Gateron Box Ink Black. But what if I filmed a Flamingo switch? I threw a desk key switch film on a Flamingo switch and tried it out beside a stock Flamingo and that Box Ink Black. And finally, I just threw some nice PBT Sugar Plum keycaps on them too. I really thought I made a mistake, but I liked how the stock Flamingo sounded more than the other two, which is good because they don't need filmed and I really didn't want to film all those switches. Next up, let's talk stabs. The biggest shortcoming of the EP75 is that it doesn't support screw-in stabilizers at all, only plate mount, and the ones included in the kit are pretty subpar. They come pre-lubed, they're better than most off-the-shelf like Logitech keyboards, but they still leave a lot to be desired. Even after plugging their butts with some 205 grade 0, I could not get them perfect. I suggest buying a decent set of aftermarket plate mount stabs, but you should at least take the stock ones out, clean them, and tune them with some dielectric grease or maybe even the Holy Mod, which I should have done while I had the board open. Learn from my mistakes. And finally, let's talk about price. You get this full keyboard kit for only $100 USD. Yes, I am aware that that's not cheap by any means, but compared to boards that I've built and how expensive this hobby can get, it's really not a bad deal. You get a wireless hot swap exploded 75 keyboard with some switches that are very impressive stock and a double shot PBT keycap set in a pretty nice colorway. The RGB is a cool feature if that's something that you look for, and it doesn't sound terrible right out of the box. In the end, I think it's worth considering for people that are super new to the hobby. You get the full kit from a single purchase, but you also get the flexibility to change out parts and try new things as you grow in the hobby. The mods I did are just a drop in the bucket. And even when you outgrow the EP75, I really think that the Flamingo switches are worth holding on to. They are really the star of the show here for me, and I'm very impressed with them just stock. It is important for me to point out that Epomaker does have some tough competition in this space though. The Keychron V1 fully assembled is only $84. The Tiger Lite is $129 bare bones, but it is stuffed to the brim with features. And even Echo has a suite of fully assembled boards with great features and a price range that competes with this. I always recommend doing your research before purchasing any board, but I do think that the EP75 is worth considering for what it offers if you're just taking that first dive down the rabbit hole. I'll be leaving you here with 2 sound tests, one with the stock keycaps and one with the Novel Keys Tarot PVT that I don't have a home for yet. Let me know which one you like more down in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like to feed the algorithm. And if you're not already, subscribe to the channel. We absolutely smashed the 500 sub goal I set in the last video, and I cannot thank all of you enough for the support. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.